The Rockets narrowly get by a New Orleans Pelicans team. That's what the fellas are talking about on Friday. With no Alperen Sengun, who was dealing with some lower back pain. Well, it seems like Sengun, after having Saturday and Sunday night off, is still in a place where he has lower back pain. He's still questionable. And you know my theory on backs is that trick backs don't stop tricking. Is this going to be a problem for the Rockets?
It has been a problem.
Because they have a couple of games. They have one of these mini baseball series against the Los Angeles Lakers, a team that is a half game ahead of you in the standings, and one of the four teams that are jockey for position anywhere between third and sixth in the West, which could be the difference between hosting or having home court advantage in a first round series or having to go on the road. How big of a problem is it, this lower back pain that Alperen Sengun is dealing with right now?
I honestly don't know how big of a problem his back is, because the spectrum of possibilities is very wide. It could be one of those things where at the end of the year you end up hearing, it was bothering him, all year long. He could barely move during some practices, et cetera. Or it's just a convenient way to excuse a not very good year for Alperen Sengun. A not very good year on his standards, obviously. And somewhat fading here at the end, which would lean more into maybe the back is probably hurting him, as the season progresses, is what I'm thinking.
I mean, is it weird that I would actually prefer the former if this was some level
that's not weird at all.
Which, again,
that's not weird at all.
I don't think it's any level of excuse. And it would be kind of weird to try and use that over the course of the season here at the end. But it would make me feel better in that, okay, he's not actually dealing with this pain and what is, his trunk. But him dealing with that really does scare me for, at the very least, the remainder of the season, because you're in a place where you're still somewhat competitive, and with Fred VanVleet continuing to give us some level of hope, no matter how small, that he could possibly return. If you do get a Fred VanVleet on this team, and even if they get better at some marginal things, they can be dangerous in this West still. Even if you don't feel like they're as big of a dominance force in the West as we had anticipated they could be, they could still be dangerous in this, except they can't without Alperen Sengun playing his best. And a hurt back Alperen Sengun is not going to help that along, I don't think.
No, I don't know what to believe, as I just mentioned, but I will say this. There are things that even with – I don't have a lot of confidence in Fred VanVleet, but he does, so I'll take his word for it.
Very confident.
I'll take his word for it. But even if he comes back and is some semblance of what he was in the past, how much better does it make Sengun, even if he is on the floor? And
I think a ton.
I don't know.
I think Sengun probably is the player that stands to benefit the absolute most from a return of Fred VanVleet.
Defensively?
Yes, actually. I think Fred VanVleet is an organizing force on defense, right? And you know this, right? On defense, especially as a coach, someone who's coached basketball, what do you always want? You want your guys talking. He's one of those guys that helps put guys in the right position. And what have we talked about a lot recently? Sometimes these rotations defensively kind of falling apart. I feel like having someone like Fred VanVleet absolutely helps that on the floor. But really, more importantly, I actually think offensively he helps Alperen Sengun. One, because Alperen Sengun having the ball in his hands and having to make those decisions, passing the basketball, has been rough in some ways. I like him as a not necessarily as a hub, but as a connector. And I think that Fred VanVleet with the ball in his hands as opposed to Alperen Sengun helps him do more of that. But then also, one of the things that I feel like I noticed when they played the Nuggets last week is you could see the stark difference in a team that can collapse the defense and then create advantage and then pass into those places where you could take advantage. The Rockets don't do that well enough. In fact, you see when they get better when teams actively double team, because it creates an advantage naturally because that defense is giving up. We're playing 4 versus 3 on the back end because we're sending 2 at this ball handler. And if they pass quick enough, then you see the offense get juiced because they don't typically in half court create advantage for themselves. Fred VanVleet is a dude who can help create advantage. Now we're getting to a place where you can take the talent of Jabari Smith Jr., of Amen Thompson, of even like someone like a Josh Okogie, and definitely a Reed Shepherd, and you see that show up in a better way, but especially Alperen Sengun, where he does not have to be the focal point. Now he can be a dude who benefits from somebody else.
I think he will, and I didn't doubt this. I think he will absolutely benefit on the offensive side. I don't think defensively it's going to change as much as you do. And the simple reason is, first of all, Dylan Brooks on the back end was more of the guy that could do that. The organizer, as you taled about, as opposed to the perimeter.
Definitely some of that. I'm not going to disagree with you.
And so I don't know how much that's going to help Sengun. And is it going to – and no matter if VanVleet is on the floor or not defensively, is that going to help teams from just attacking Sengun? Because whether you're organized or not, they are going to attack Sengun.
Well, yeah, in that drop,
Yeah.
I do think that Fred, well, I was going to say Fred helps with some of the screen navigation. Fred, at his age, was not the absolute best screen navigator, but I wonder if you're having Fred play some of the minutes that, like, let's say Reed Shepherd was playing. Reed Shepherd is an awful screen navigator, and I will not be quiet about that. What is the difference there, right? How does that change in helping protect Alperen Sengun on some of those drop coverage situations where he ends up in no man's land with two dudes barreling down at him and having to make decisions, right?
Yeah.
I think that some of that can help, but I think it's fair, the point that you made.
Yeah, and did you hear Kendrick Perkins?
I try not to. With all due respect to the pride of Beaumont, Texas, Kendrick Perkins has real outside.
And this is what I'm talking about. Like, they're going to attack him no matter who's on the floor on the perimeter.
Fair enough. Outside of injury, outside of any of that, this is Kendrick Perkins with criticism for Alperen Sengun.
Alperen.
What up, Alperen? He makes my skin crawl.
You was called a baby Jokic 3 days ago.
I switched that. He's nowhere
3 days
close
ago.
to what I would expect out of talent-wise, offensively. He has that. But it's a mindset, bro. Defensively, against the Spurs, they went at him. Dylan Harper said they went at him 15 straight plays. Damn. 15. You know how fucking disrespectful that is? That they know.
I just watched the Washington Wizards play. I know.
No, but what I'm saying is that they know that you're not going to put your feet in the ground and be willing to slide your fucking puppies for 2 steps and take pride in defending. No Steven Adams. You're the starting center. At some point, you're going to have to say, man, you know what? I got to anchor this defense. You can't give me 110% offensively down the floor and give me 40% on the defensive side of things. I'm not saying he's the most athletic, but those guys cannot coexist.
That's the thing that is just now he, definitely put a lot of extra jelly on that, but I don't think it hides the fact that the teams are going to hunt him in the post 15 straight, and we heard that as well. Harper talking about that after the game last week or week before. That's something that's not going to go away.
No, I think that's a little more schematic, but definitely Alperen has to carry some of that, right? You're back there, you're the last line of defense, and people have felt it capable, and honestly, not just capable, the path to success is being able to go at you. I think that's more of a collective defense thing that you need to speak of. But I think that it's fair that, hey, man, Alperen Sengun, you need to show up. And the reason why I still go, ooh, this injury thing is scaring me is because you see what happens when he's not there. There's just no more bigs left. Yeah. Right? You saw against the Pelicans where they started small with Dorian Finney-Smith in, I guess, as a de facto 5, or maybe Jabari or maybe KD, depending on how you looked at it. But that was a team in the Pelicans that is also small, and you went back and forth with them to the point of, what was the score? Was it a 2-point win at the very end of this? 107-105 versus the Pelicans at home, right? How does that look now that you have the Lakers in town with LeBron James, admittedly a lesser version of LeBron James, but somebody that's a physical guy.
They've been playing well.
Luka Doncic, who's very good at manipulating things, right? And a Austin Reeves, who's very agile. And then they've got some bigs that maybe not great, but like a Jackson Hayes as a rim runner, DeAndre Ayton, who can get big and physical at times, right? Like, they're going to have to show up in physically. And so if you have those questions about Alperen Sengun already, what happens if whether Alperen Sengun plays and is dealing with the lower back or doesn't play, and now you're small? I think that does pose an interesting question for the Rockets in this stretch here.
Huge series here, so to speak, with the Lakers. But, at some point with Sengun, and I think he's been a fantastic player. I mean, he's still young and all that. All I'm saying is this year there's something going on where he's either injured or it's a combination of his back and the effort that he's putting forth. Because this has always been one thing that he's been bailed out by previously Steven Adams multiple times. At some point, whether you have good communication, whether you have help or whatever it may be on the defensive side, the collective, as you put it, at some point you have to, and this is what Perk was talking, you have to make a stand and do the right thing defensively, and it's just, it hasn't happened enough.
Well, if he plays tonight, this is a great time to start because you've got the Lakers, and not only do you have the Lakers, this is 8:30 on Peacock and NBCSN. So you're kind of in front of the hoes, right? Like, this is not on big NBC, but hey, man, world's watching, baby, right? The NBA world is watching. You got one of the premier franchises on your home floor. What are you going to do, right? Shout out to Michael Irvin, right? Like, this is a moment where you have an opportunity to answer the call, and hopefully that lower back injury does not hurt his opportunity.
And by the way, he's questionable.
He's questionable. Yeah. If he plays, he needs to show up. If he doesn't, man, this is going to be a very interesting game. I think it'll be pretty telling on where this Rockets team is in the last, 15, 16 games of this season.